Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm your host today, Karen Stevens, and we'll be discussing the value of training in the arts. Join our panel, Ms. Iris Acker, actress and producer of Spotlight on the Arts, Mr. Bill Hirschman, theater critic, Mr. Michael McKeever, actor, playwright, and our guest for today, director-producer, Mr. Michael Leeds. Hello, Michael, welcome.
Hi, Karen.
Not only is he a director or producer, he's also an educator.
And an educator, yes. It's good to have you here.
Glad to be here. Not glad to be the first, but glad to be here.
Let's start with the big question. Is training really necessary in the arts?
Yes.
And why is that?
Gotta go. Yeah, no, it is necessary, at least, in my viewpoint. And here's why. If I was a plumber, would you ask, are tools important for your trade? If I was an educator, just a teacher in a school, would you ask, do you need books? Do you need paper? What do you need to communicate to your students? And I think that's the same thing with our business, that there's a gift that I think we have, a passion that I think we have, but you need a craft in order to channel that gift and that passion.
Mm-hmm. Michael, I was just thinking, can you tell as a director, when they come to audition for you, you can tell the actor who's had no training?
Not at first. And that also links to some actors audition terribly and some actors audition terrifically, not based on training at all. But I mean, it can be helped, and it can be helped a great deal with training. But there are just some actors where the nerves get the better of them, and as I say, they leave themselves at the door. And so at first you can't. But when you give an adjustment, when you give a direction, you can see what's going on for them. And if they're not processing it in a way that experienced actors who've trained process that, then they may come back with something brilliant, but as a director, I can see, well, that was a little hit and miss, and then I'll go a little further, and I'll give them another adjustment. And what I find is actors who don't have training it's like that Katy Perry song, Fireworks. They can burst, but whether they can repeat that is usually quite problematic.
Well, let's get to more specifics. What are the actual tools that you develop when you have training? What tools do you get?
Okay, so for me, the biggest asset and why an actor is imagination. That they have a gift of imagining themselves in a situation, being a certain person. So that gift I can't teach imagination. What I can teach, what I can help, is giving an environment a basis so that when their imagination takes flight, they know they have a net. And the net is the craft. So specifically, I think actors are detectives. I think that we look for, or I as a director look for clues in a different way, but actors look for clues for the character, and it goes back to the age-old reporting: who, what, why, where, when, how. So, and you all know this, but what training does, it gives you the questions and helps you figure out how to answer them, and we can go more in depth with that. But the main point of it is, and I'm sure you've all heard it, is you do your work, do the training, do the backstory, and then forget it when you get into rehearsal and you...
So I'd like to ask, is there a specific place that you would recommend that actors go to training? Do they need to go to a university? Do they need to just take private lessons? What avenue would you recommend for actors or performers who want to pursue training?
It's a good question. Okay, from what happened for me, I can only speak from my experience, was I went to Ithaca College. And truthfully, and it's changed a lot now. I've got a lot of actors who come in New York and stuff from Ithaca College, and they're pretty terrific, great training. But when I was there, it was much more about throwing you into the water. We did 81 act plays in one season.
Wow.
Yeah, and it just threw you in. But, I got to know, a wagon full of cotton, which I never would have been exposed to. a play, in case anybody.
Williams.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tennessee Williams.
Yeah, right.
27.
Yeah, with Tyne Daly. It's a joke from a pre-show. No, but the point was, for me, it was invaluable getting thrown into that, but I came out of it with a good familiarity of a body of work, but still no clue what to do with that. So I think universities are much sharper now, much hipper now, and I think that you will get that familiarity, plus you get training, and you get in universities a broader training, because as, I don't know if it was, I think it's probably Uta Hagen or Stella Adler who talks about it's life. It's about life. You can't live on a stage. You have to go out and live and experience and, relationships. And that's what you draw upon. You can't draw upon reading, Death of a Salesman, and I'm going to use that. You certainly can be impacted by that.
So what you're saying is training applies that life learning
Life
into,
experience, right. And so universities, I think, are really excellent for, first of all, most times when you're doing a university, obviously you're in your 20s, so you're being formed, and you're being formed by relationships, Now, private coaching. I think private coaching is really valuable. I do private coaching because obviously I can spend that hour zooming right in on the actor and their particular problems, their particular assets, what their particular goal is with the particular audition that they're going to. What you don't get from coaching is watching the other actors. And when you're in a class and you get to see other actors' choices, you get to sit there and go, well, I wouldn't have done that. Oh, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Right,
Oh,
and you can
look.
give suggestions, and because I find for myself that that's a great part of learning, being in a group, is observing someone else and then being able to give suggestions to that person. It's really invaluable. I went to university, studied theater at university, but I always told myself I got my degree just in case I want to teach, because I didn't really necessarily think I needed a degree to be a professional actor. Iris, what is your training?
No, I'm saying my training, mostly on the job.
On the job?
Oh yeah. No, I didn't get my equity card until after I had performed and everything. No, it was really on the job. After, it has true with Screen Actors Guild too. After I got my first film, then I took a class on how to do films. After I got my first commercial, which was not easy back in those days because there were no classes in commercial training, which is why I made a fool of myself initially, really auditioning. No, but it's so specific. Training today, there are classes in improvisation and auditioning. We're talking about auditioning, these actors who are so nervous, and I understand it. We all are. I was told, use your nerves, use your nerves. But you give classes in auditioning too, don't you? I mean, so that it's very, very, very specific, very, very specific. That's where it is today.
But one of the things I'm curious about is that I remember interviewing John Manzelli, the director, a while back, and he said that when you're a New York actor or a Chicago actor or a Los Angeles actor, you are waiting tables, you are doing a show, and you are always, until you are 65 years old, you are always taking classes.
Right.
My perception in talking to actors down here is that some of them, not all of them, but some of them are taking classes, but the most of them are not, that there is not a sense of continuing education.
There's a good
Is
reason
that
for it, too.
accurate? And if
That's-
so,
Yeah,
why?
I'd like to hear about that.
Oh yeah, that is one of the things that makes me a little sad about actors down here, and part of it is finances. Really part of it is finances, and it's a totally understandable thing.
Yes.
But there's also a mindset. I'd just like to take it in order about auditions.
Yes.
That I always say, first of all, breathe. Breathe in life, breathe in audition, breathe on stage. Breathing will free up, they say like words are the boat that traffics on the river of emotion. It's not about the words, it's about breathing to access, what you're feeling. So with an audition, what I say, and this is, look, it could seem gamey, I'm big on moment before and personalization.
Thank
Okay,
you. Yes.
so personalization is, you all know, but just for whoever might not, is who you're speaking to. And for me, what changes a monologue into a scene is the strength of your personalization. What I find most actors do, or many actors in an audition, is they're acting to their personalization, but without an active personalization. And usually, it's the person you're talking to who triggers you into the next beat, who sends you into the next moment. And that's how it becomes a scene, is the other person interrupting? Are they not believing? Are they smiling? Are they amused? Are they about to disagree with you? All of that prompts you. So one is the strength of your personalization. The other is, which leads me, I give a little trick which may sound crazy, but I say walk in with your personalization and tell them to wait over there. and say hello to the people who are, but you know that when you're ready to go, your personalization is there just waiting for you. The other thing is moment before. I think moment before and moment after, especially on camera, for an on-camera audition, is really important.
Yes.
And the reason is your moment before and your moment after are strictly yours. Nobody else will do what that is.
Be specific. Tell people what you're talking about.
Okay, a moment before is the exact moment before you speak. Too many times I'll say to an actor, well, what just happened? And they said, well, I was outside and I was written. No, what just happened? And then they say, well, I was coming to, no, what just happened? And then what you will get to is, well, she said what? What did she say? She said why. I said, okay, that's your moment before. She said why. So now you have to take why, and now you decide, well, I know exactly why. Or, well, you see what I mean? It's the moment before that triggers what you're going to say and how you say it. If you have no moment before, you're acting in a vacuum. And it's apparent, especially on camera, that you're acting in a vacuum. So you want your moment before. A lot of actors in on-camera auditions will, they'll be pretty specific they'll have, let's say you're playing a nurse, and a lot of times the actors down here, they're doing under fives. That's the way it is.
Right.
So they have their clipboard, and they're working on what their moment before was, which was, were they doing, the checking off the meds? Were they looking to see where the doctor was coming from? And then you always, in the best thing is to be coming from something else. For example, Karen knows this really well. If you're going to pick up the phone and get bad news, you really want to be coming from a place that is not about the bad news, so that you can be surprised by the bad news if possible. So that's moment before. Moment after is the scene doesn't end because you've said the last word. The scene actually is going on ad infinitum. You just happen to have chosen to stop. Mm-hmm. So after you finish whatever the moment is, there's a moment after. There's a beat. And the beat could be waiting for your personalization's reply. The beat could be, I didn't get through. Do you see what I mean? Whatever that is, and as Karen knows, when you're on camera, until they say cut, you got to have moment after moment after moment after.
Michael, I was explaining to everybody, I'm so sorry, Karen, but I was talking about Michael Shurtleff in a class, and I didn't know this until I took Michael Shurtleff's class in New York, but the moment before was not enough for him. I had to write a scene, because what happens, it happens in New York, I don't think it happens here, you get sides. You have no idea what happened before and what will happen after.
Exactly.
And they don't tell you. You can, it's kind of thing, okay, we used to go to pick up these things, now of course it's all emailed. And so the moment before, I couldn't work, that wouldn't be enough for me. I am used to now, because of Michael Shurtleff's class, writing a whole scene. I know exactly what happened.
That's
and when
great.
I walk out there, I am in the scene because the scene was started back there.
So when you write the scene, what are you writing?
But just a moment before
Sorry.
we go on, I just want to.
Yeah.
You said that you took your first class after after you got your first job. So that brings us to the question of natural talent versus training. So you didn't learn all of this moment before or moment after until after you got the gig.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously
But the thing is,
you relied on your natural talent.
I was getting hired. I was auditioning and doing theater and doing films and all that stuff. And I didn't know what I was doing. But I wasn't getting sides. This was something new to me. Now I was going for Broadway. Now this was big deal.
But
really,
here, I think that introduces a really good question. If there is someone who has great natural talent, just has that ability to know how to perform in front of a camera or on a stage, do they need training? What do they gain from training? And does that training get in the way or impede their natural talents? I ask you.
It's a great question. It's a two-part question, I think, Mike. First part is, let's talk about repetition. You have a natural gift. You have a natural gift for repetition. Can you do that scene 8 times in a row and deliver all 8 times? And if you can't do it, say, 12 times in a row, you can access a craft which can help you. You can access substitution, what triggers you. And by the way, for me, it's very important. I took from Larry Moss, who is this incredible teacher. I studied with him for 10 years, and he's out in LA, and he does all the big stars now. And wonderful, wonderful teacher who distills Sanford Meisner and Uda and Stella and all of that. But his point, I have to think how he said this, is, what was your question again?
If you have natural talent to perform on stage or in front of a camera, do you need the training?
Well, you do, because, for example, here, this is the easiest one. Sally Field on Inside the Actors Studio, if you saw that. Sally Field talked about she was doing the TV and she got her first movie. And the first movie was a Western. And she had to walk from here to say where that camera is. And she had to walk, and when she arrived at her mark, she had to cry. Not only that, there were all these wagons along with her and all these extras who were walking. And she's walking and she's going, I have to cry, I have to cry, I have to get to my mark and cry, I have to get to my mark and cry. And she reached the mark, and of course she didn't cry, and they said cut. And all the wagons had to come back, and all the actors had to come back. This happened like 15 times. Swear to God, 15 times. This is what she said. So she vowed if she had to take a glass and slit her arm, she would never go through that again. And that's where training came in. That's where learning about substitution, learning how to repeat, learning how to change your substitution if you need it, your emotional recall, your physical recall, all of that, these are tools. You need tools so that when the naturally gifted actor takes flight, he knows that, like I said, there's a net there, and the net is his craft. I don't know any actor truly who does not rely on some sort of craft. At some point, like Iris, that you can be thrown into the water and you can swim very well, but when they tell you to do 10 laps, you may not have to know how to breathe.
Exactly.
I want Bill to ask a question because I want to know, we're 3 actors here. As a non-actor, your curiosity of the actor up there, do you think about a training? I mean, what do you think?
And I want to add on to that, because I wanted to ask you also, as a theater critic, are you aware of when you're watching actors on stage, of which ones that may have more training and which? So we can tie those two things.
To some degree. It has to do, I think, particularly with specialized kinds of skills. For instance, my great bugaboo is Shakespeare. I think even though there is a great deal more training going on at the university level now in speaking verse correctly and analyzing verse, you can always tell someone who really has no idea what the heck they're doing. And God bless, there are some good Shakespearean actors down here, and there are occasionally some good Shakespearean plays. But there are more than a few Shakespearean plays that I'm in pain when I leave. And it's not because these aren't good actors. I've seen some good actors who are very skilled in other areas, but that's where you can tell they have not had the kind of training. To some degree, movement. You can tell an actor who is not comfortable in their own body. Now I shouldn't say you, meaning everybody out there in the watching us, but a skilled observer can tell when someone isn't comfortable in their body. A skilled observer can tell when someone is using their body in a way to specifically bring that character out as being different than another character they might play. And if you have a good eye, you can see that. I also think to some degree it's a matter of, you can always tell when an actor is not in the moment, when they don't have the craft and they are terribly terrified, and they may or may not be good actors, or they may or may not have good direction, but you don't believe them for a second because they are not in the moment. So yeah, as a critic, I can tell. I think a lot of people in the audience can tell, but I think they don't know what it is. They can't identify it. It's something that just didn't work, that didn't gel, and sometimes I can tell that.
I have to share something.
Sure.
You're doing this. We're talking about in the moment and all, and being talent. You didn't know you had talent. I auditioned for something very big once, And they said, you have to cry on cue. I said, no problem. Now I'm going to share with you. If I look at you now and I don't blink, I have very, very sensitive eyes. The reason I wear glasses, on this set, the lights, my eyes would be tearing continuously. All I have to do, in a theater, in a play, oh my God, to look at that actress, I just stare at the spotlight and the tears start flowing. And I have done that. I did an industrial film once for Mr. Clean. Mr. Clean got lemon freshened, would you believe this? And the actress had to do it the audition and prove it. Then when I got to the set, you know what they did? They put glycerin drops in my eyes so the tears would automatically flow. So we're talking about, there was no moment, it was getting the job in any way that I could. And call that on-the-job training. I don't know. I found out that I did that by doing theater. I would look at that and I would cry, and I would and sob. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let me ask you.
Go ahead.
You started to talk about finances. I'm curious why actors in regional theater, a lot of regional theaters, don't continue with their training, where their training is I've got an audition, or I'm on the boards this month, so that's my training. Why is it that you think that regional actors don't do the kind of continuous training that you'll find actors in major cities and other countries doing?
I think it also depends on what you aspire to. There is you can aspire to get work. Mm-hmm. That's not the same thing as aspiring to be excelling at your art and fulfilling all the potential that you have. And I've found there are at least two different kind of actors who come to my classes. And many, and should be, it's about getting the job. But it's also about, well, how can you access to give yourself more range of parts to get a job?
Well, is it always trying to move to that next level, or is it simply a matter of maintaining your craft and staying in it?
I think if you try to move to the next level, you will maintain your craft. If you just seek to maintain your craft, you will never move to the next level, and you will be moving sideways.
And getting soggy.
One thing I do want to add on to the physicality is something that I think is completely lost is vocal training. Yeah. Because actors, for the most part, even wonderful actors that I see down here, are acting from here up. And so consequently, they're not able to access the emotion which comes in the breath, which will feed into what you're saying and really imbue it. So that I wish people would really concentrate on vocal training and diaphragm breathing.
What is this? Take your acting to the next stage. I have a brochure here.
Yes.
This is the class you're teaching now. Tell me about the classes you are.
Shameless self-promotion.
Yeah, it's a class. I teach a class in Boca and I teach a class in Fort Lauderdale. It's an adult acting class. It's theater and on camera. And what we do is the actors bring in their scenes, they bring in their monologues, we work, then every week I give them sides, and then they come in and we do the on-camera sides, and then we show the original from the TV show or film, not because you can say, well, now you got to imitate them, but just to look at another actor's choices. And I find it really works well.
I just like to kind of bring something else into the mix, and this is one last big discussion topic. With the whole reality thing, that now there are a lot of untrained actors who are getting lots and lots of work. Actors, untrained people. And so I would just say, what is the value of having a trained performer? Because as an actor myself, I think I'd be pretty resentful of going and really working on my art and training in my craft and losing out to someone who just kind of like ran in, like a lot of hip-hop artists are getting acting roles these days, etc. What would be the value of having that trained performer?
It's a good question, and it's the nature of our biz, not just based on training, but the fact that 9 times out of 10, if taking talent as a given, and then we'll talk about training. I'll go fast on this, but taking talent as a given, you are cast based on the fact that you're 5'2" or 5'5". You are cast on how you would match up with the lead actor. So it's so many other factors. Not least of which, or most of which, can be you will draw in a crowd. You have done something that has earned you some type of celebrity. We have it down here in Florida. People will go see shows based on the name of a particular actor.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So that'll happen. They'll come in. So directors are thinking, well, if I get that person, I'll get that audience. Maybe even get a good review because that person likes that person. So that thinking happens for casting. However, where the drawback is not so much that they got the part that you were right for, although that's a killer. It's when you're in the scene with them and they can't hit the ball back. What they can do is go like this and watch me, but they can't hit the ball back, and that is where it really, I think, suffers.
Yes.
Money, everything, it costs.
It also happens in auditions too, where you're reading with someone who's not really trained, and it affects your audition.
Oh, yes.
Here's the clue for that, and it's the same thing on stage. You can't compensate for another actor. If you do, the whole ship goes down. If that actor is big and broad, you can't bring yourself up. Don't bring yourself up to them. You have to maintain your reality, your intention, and react off of them. And it's still going to...
Even if it's wrong.
Even if it's wrong, you've got to react and find something that you love about them.
Can I just say, I'm having the best time here. I'm learning so much. You're having the best time. It's like a master class. Thank you so much.
I really wanted to see how I could try to bring writing into this, as far as being trained for the actor. But that's for another show.
Exactly.
But Michael has admitted to no training. I have admitted to training after
the fact.
I was successful, and
Bill,
having to earn the money to pay for the training. We all have survival jobs. Interesting that we did. We could have a whole lecture. We could have a whole thing and bring in a bunch of actors and let's talk about our survival jobs.
Yes.
But Michael, your new class touches on. Tell me about the new class a little bit more.
Well, we only have a small amount of time.
Yeah, a few minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so just very briefly, the highlights of the
class.
It's terrific. I'm brilliant. Take the class.
Okay. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
But Michael, would you take Michael's class?
I would gladly take his class. I feel like I have today. I really know.
I know, I do too. I feel like I've learned a lot.
Exactly.
Yes, I really do. Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Personally, as an actor, I can't say enough about the value of training. I wish I could take more classes, but I've been fortunate enough to work with some really talented directors and actors who've taught me a lot. And that's our time for today. We want to thank you for being with us, thank our panel, and thank our guest, Mr. Michael Leeds. We want to encourage everyone to please go to the theater. And to find out what's happening in our area, go to floridatheateronstage.com.